What's up everybody, we're back with today's video on war number 3 of this season, and we're going up against ISO8a. They're a pretty solid Master Alliance and we faced them I believe a couple seasons ago, in which occasion we had lost the war. So we were definitely looking to make a better impression here and bring back the win, since we're needing that after losing last war. This war I'm bringing Torch, Magik, and Warlock for this war. I had been assigned with Path 7 in Section 1, and initially when the war first started I was assigned with Path 7 in Section 2 as well. However, I'll explain a little later on something that happened that we had to reshuffle some of the paths, and then I ended up taking some sketchy fights in here that I was not prepared for with the counters that I had brought into war. So there's more to come on that. For this first fight, I'm taking Warlock against this Mr. Sinister on Kinetic, Transference, and reduced power drain abilities. It's not a difficult fight for him. Obviously he can control the regen pretty well with the infections. The only thing that I had to keep an eye on here is regarding the reduced power drain. I ended up pushing him to a special 2, and if I didn't dax that correctly, I probably would have given him enough power to be close to another special 2 back to back. So I definitely tried to bait as many special 1s as possible in here. And then even with the reduced power drain abilities with my bleeds or even my armor breaks, while he was infected, he was still kind of controlling his power. Even if I blocked some of the hits, and the kinetic transference would give him some power. But other than that, it's a pretty easy fight, and you notice here too that they had chosen the global modifier for Bulwark, which is still quite not popular in other Master Alliances yet. I can see the potential for that with some specific matchups that it can be really hard to counter those, but this one wasn't a big problem at all. So here's the part that it starts to become a little more sketchy with the counters and the reassignment, that instead of taking path 7, I ended up going for path 4. The person that was supposed to take this path, they struggled with path 2 in section 1, and we ended up not wanting to risk it, that they would then have to call back up to go into path 4 to finish what they potentially couldn't have if they ran out of items. So I volunteered myself to go into path 4 since I had Warlock that could work for a couple of the fights here. So this Warlock, obviously you don't want to go into the fight not having your proper boosts, and I already was at a disadvantage for not having the advanced power boosts. It's pretty known that we've had a shortage for about 3 weeks, that the boosts didn't come back into the loyalty store. So I had already run out of those and had to just go with, my best strategy forward and trying to get to my special 2, not take too many of his specials or block too many of his hits, because that would fit into his power. And obviously there's the complication of this node of having the crumbling armor, that if I don't hit him within 6 seconds, I will lose my armor up, and that could open myself up to take a lot of plasma detonate damage. And as you saw, there was a moment that I had to go and risk my hit so I wouldn't stay armor broken and take the plasma damage. I knew that he would retaliate my combo or even any intercepts that I had the opening for, but I'd prefer to take a couple hits rather than lose 10 to 20k damage on just the plasma detonates and then end up dying. Moving into path 4, I had this Omega Red on the first node that really doesn't do anything for him, since he can't apply too many debuffs on me, just the passive death spores. So I wasn't too concerned about this fight. The only thing that I wanted to keep an eye on was the Bulwark protection triggering on him. However, Warlock is a good counter for this, since he's also a metal champion, and if he applies any damage over time, such as the heavy attack with the bleeds, that will shut down the protection for a few seconds, and then that gives me the opening for me to manage my combos or even my specials. And as you can see here, I just prefer to go with my special 2s, and that was a pretty quick fight here and no issues at all. However, this is where the fun really begins, because Silver Surfer on this node here As long as he has 3 debuffs applied into the attacker, he's going to become unblockable the whole time until all the debuffs are purified or that they end. And obviously the good counter for this node would be Dr. Doom, and that's the person that we had taking this fight. However, since I had to reassign that to myself and I didn't have anybody with the armor break immunity, I had to, as much as I could, try to avoid his heavy attacks, and I did a good job at trying to push him into not throwing any of the special ones at first and letting me get to my special too. That would allow me to have a little more control and put him against the wall and trying to get those intercepts. And as you can see here, I tried to be risky and intercept him against the wall as he was getting up. However, his animation is a little weird that I can't really time that well. And as you can see, he was really happy throwing those heavy attacks and putting me at risk here of ended up being hit by his unblockable hits. And at that point, I just had to put my big boy pants on and trying to get those intercepts, and luckily I was able to manage that and finish the fight. To close out the war, I have this Wasp Miniboss on the Brute Force and Enhanced Evade node. This doesn't have a lot of challenges for Warlock. Again, he is a metal champion, and as long as I can apply the damage over time, if her protection would come up, I can just parry and heavy her to remove the first protection that comes up and then keep it off for a few seconds. So that's what I tried to do here as much as I could, just parry and heavy. It's pretty easy. Obviously I had the white Magneto pre-fight here so that I could parry as freely as I could. Otherwise, with Limber, that wouldn't have been possible. And obviously I also tried to manage for when her evades were on cooldown and trying to bank on that to throw my special twos. Otherwise, the fight would have lasted too long and I didn't need to play that safe. So I tried to mix in my parry and heavies, but also throw my specials whenever I had a chance to. This was a pretty easy fight, and that will close out the war for us. We ended up losing this war again, so that's not a good start to the season, and we're hoping to improve from here. But I'm pretty happy with how this war went, especially because of having to change the plans mid-war and then not having the correct counters to it, but still I was able to finish my fights without dropping any deaths. So that's a positive for sure. However, we need to think collectively that as an alliance there's still some job to be done and improve. So I'll thank you guys for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I am working on my next video for war number 4. I apologize that this video is a little late. Things have been a little crazy with work. I'll keep trying to release my videos on a more regular schedule, but it takes a lot more time now having to enter the commentary, because I don't want that to also just not add any value and help anybody with any strategies or ideas for the new nodes and modifiers. So I'll keep my best to keep giving you those videos on time. But for now, I appreciate the view and hope that you liked this content, and please like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already.